Science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bayhillnews Net, also on KincadiRadio.info. Looking for a place to relax with natural cool breeze and friendly surroundings? Then check the Bayhill Tree Bar, located at Bayhill Cane Garden. We have everything a bar will have. We also sell Shell 20 pounds cooking gas at the Bayhill Tree Bar. It's the Vin Abbott Show with news, views, and interviews. The music in the mix on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Kincadi Radio. You can now order your roti skins from Des Tasty Treats and Roti Skins at telephone 1784-528-2979 or pick up Des Tasty Treats and Roti Skins at Randy's Supermarket. More products are coming soon from Des Tasty Treats and Roti Skins.
Every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. you will hear a old-time story by Gene Abbott on Bayhillnews.net.
Bayhillnews Network presents Inside Health, 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bayhillnews Net, also on KincadiRadio.info.
Traveling to St. Vincent, need to get around? Crystal Connection Car Rental, telephone 1784-529-9120 or email crystaldanielle91@gmail.com. Book your economy rental car today.
Last year, she brought you growing up in Vincy and a collection of poems, Vincy Lifestyle. She told you about minivans, Commerceman, Kingstown and Carnival. In Growing Up Vincy, she took you down memory lane to playing games at school, riding in wooden buses, Saturday and Sunday chores, bathing and washing in the river. She even told you about zombie stories. This year, she brings you Uniquely Vincy, which details all our unique features. Tree, Madongo, whaling in Beckway, Fest and Dance in the Cake in Union Island.
And Dr. Nicolette Springs books, Growing Up in Vincy, a collection of poems, Vincy Lifestyle, and Uniquely Vincy are available at Games Book Center, Paul's Avenue, and Variety Service Center, Georgetown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When in Antigua, travel with Avon Bully bus services between Pigot's Village and St. John's on Old Fareham Road. We also conduct island tours 7 days per week, all in comfort, style, and safety. For more information, contact Avon Bully 1268-764-2869. That's 1268-764-2869. It's the Vin Abbott Show with news, views, and interviews. The music in the mix on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Kincadi Radio.
Thank you! Kick the dust off your boots and join me every Saturday at 7 p.m. and Wednesday at 5 p.m. as we go charting in the USA country style right here on Bayhillnews Network. We'll count down the top 30 country hits of the week and bring back the memories that make you say,
"Oh, yes, I remember."
So rustle up your herd and stop by every Saturday evening at 7 p.m. and again on Wednesday at 5 p.m. for charting in the USA country style right here on Bayhillnews Network.
Bayhillnews Network presents Inside Health, 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bayhillnews Net, also on KincadiRadio.info.
Welcome to this afternoon's program. This is Dr. Stan Horn, Doctor of Natural Medicine with a word of health. Good day, and how in the world are you? Today's word is vasculitis. That's Vasculitis, vasculitis. Vasculitis is an inflammation of the blood vessels, commonly linked to certain disease conditions. For example, lupus, that is systemic lupus erythematosus, scleroderma, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, dermatomyositis, drugs, deficiencies, viral, bacterial, and certain parasitic infections are also implicated. Immune complexes are undigested food particles in the bloodstream or antigens that bind to antibodies. If immune complexes are not a lot, and if the immune system is functioning effectively, immune complexes are usually cleared from the circulation by the immune system. The immune responses can be delayed, occurring hours, even days after exposure to whatever the source. When immune complexes persist in circulation, they interact with platelets, the blood cells involved in clotting. The result is the release of certain substances that cause an increase in the permeability or the porosity of the blood vessels, meaning the blood vessels become porous. The clotting cells, that is the platelets, begin clotting, triggering inflammation. The immune complexes also settle out within the small or smaller blood vessels. Inflammation then develops in the tissues, irritating and causing damage, triggering even more inflammatory cells that flood to the area, yielding more destruction by the destructive action of certain lysosome enzymes and alcoholic cirrhosis, as well as other conditions linked to interfering with the clearance of the liver, prompting the increased circulation of immune complexes. Treatment revolves around the removal or the reduction of the circulating immune complexes, dampening down the inflammatory response, stabilizing the cell membranes, and improving circulation to the damaged tissues. Drugs, hidden infections, and food allergies increase the levels of circulating immune complexes. The focus should be on reducing exposure to immune complexes. Vasculitis can cause many different symptoms depending upon what tissue or tissues are affected and the severity of the tissue damage. Some affected individuals will not be sick and may notice only occasional spots on the skin. Others become very sick with body-wide symptoms and damage to major organs. Symptoms are based on the tissues affected by the condition. The risk for vasculitis includes lupus, that is systemic lupus erythematosus, and Lyme disease, to name a few. You've been listening to A Word of Health with me, Dr. Stan Horn, Doctor of Natural Medicine. Do join me again when I bring you yet another segment of A Word of Health. Should you need to get in touch with me, I can be reached on 784-531-1150. That's 784-531-1150. Thank you for listening, and until next time, look after yourselves, stay well, and stay safe.
Bayhillnews Network presents Inside Health, a 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bayhillnews Net, also on KincadiRadio.info.
Welcome to this afternoon's program. This is Dr. Stan Horn, Doctor of Natural Medicine with a Word of Health. Good day, and how in the world are you? Today's word is recommendations Vestibulitis, that's Vestibulitis, vestibulitis. First up are hot applications. You may get some soothing relief by applying a warm application to the area from the tea bags you would have soaked in the same sitz bath you will or can use. Place the tea bags on a pad so that they remain in place. Next is dairy products. Whether it's allergies, lactose intolerance, or the risk of hormone contamination or infectious agents, the consumption of dairy products has contributed to many chronic health problems in both children and adults. Restrict or limit dairy products to reduce the amount of calcium oxalate in your body. For some people, avoiding dairy products altogether significantly contributes to both short and long-term health improvements and having a greater sense of well-being. Next is chemical avoidance. Avoid all potential irritants your underwear may present, for example, laundry soaps, detergents, bleaches, and so on. Perfumed or even plain soaps may further irritate or aggravate the condition. Use a mild, non-perfumed soap, for example, Castile soap. Natural glycerin soap can also help. A handheld shower massager is preferred to an overhead nozzle as it's much easier to wash away any remaining soap residue after washing. You should wash the vulva area with distilled water instead of ordinary tap water to avoid irritation from the chlorine. Pour a cup of water on the area while urinating. This dilutes the urine and helps to wash away any irritating chemicals. This will help to relieve painful urination. Next is ozone therapy. The trichomoniasis, the Trichomonas, Candida albicans, and Gardnerella vaginale organisms are present in nearly 97% of vulval vaginitis. That's vulvovaginitis, vulval vaginitis. When applied, ozonated oil can eliminate fungus and other organisms. 60 participants were studied in a trial with ozonated oil. The participants were divided into 3 different groups. 30 were treated with drops of ozonated oil, 20 were treated with conventional methods, and the remaining 10 participants were treated with a placebo oil, that is, one that has not been ozonated. The participants treated with ozonated oil recovered within 5 to 7 days. The group treated with conventional methods, only about 20% of them recovered within 10 to 16 days. However, the placebo group's symptoms got worse. The group treated with the ozonated oil, their pain disappeared within 24 hours. The itching stopped within 48 to 72 hours. Next is oxalate avoidance. Reducing the oxalate in your diet helps. Oxalates are compounds in certain foods that bind themselves to essential nutrients, thus interfering with their absorption. Therefore, avoid foods such as teas, spinach, and Concord grapes, to name a few. Also, avoid consuming more than 250 milligrams of vitamin C daily, as it may contribute to oxalate formation. You've been listening to A Word of Health with me, Dr. Stan Horn, Doctor of Natural Medicine. Do join me again when I bring you another segment of A Word of Health. Thank you for listening, and until next time, look after yourselves, stay well.
Bayhillnews Network presents Inside Health, a 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bayhillnews Net, also on KincadiRadio.info. Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Inside Health, number one for the year 26. I trust all is well with you and your loved ones wherever you are listening to us this evening. And we are indeed happy to be back with you. We are grateful that you have allowed us into your space at this time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Vin Abbott in the studio of Kankadi Radio Toronto with our chief engineer Monty Kippett at Bayhillnews Network on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Inside Health is a radio magazine health information program heard on Wednesday evenings on kankadiradio.info and bayhillnews.net simultaneously. We take a look at the human body. Yes, we take a look at the human body, the different parts, functions, diseases, and conditions that affect performance. We are solution focused. In this regard, we pay close attention to the social determinants of health, all those factors with which we were born, grow, live, and age. This week, the eyes have it, glaucoma. Flu is wreaking havoc globally, so let's get going. Friends, this month is being observed as Glaucoma Awareness Month. The World Health Organization and related studies show that glaucoma is a major cause of blindness, affecting millions globally. Yes, affecting millions globally, with around 80 million people living with it by 2020, leading to over 3.6 million blind and 4.14 million visually impaired. It's the second leading cause of blindness after cataracts, disproportionately affecting older adults and certain ethnic backgrounds or ethnic groups like African Americans. Projections estimate the number of people with glaucoma will rise to 112 million by 2040. Let me repeat that. Projections estimate that the number of people with glaucoma will rise to 112 million by 2040. Now, here are some key figures and stats that you might want to consider between 2020 and 2024. The prevalence, approximately 76 to 80 million people worldwide had glaucoma. Blindness, 3.6 million people were blind due to glaucoma. Again, that's between 2020 and 2024. Visual impairment, around 4.14 million people experienced moderate to severe visual impairment from glaucoma, MSVI for short. And the proportion of blindness, glaucoma accounted for roughly 8.39% of all blindness. What are the impacts and risk factors? Well, the leading cause is the second leading cause of irreversible blindness globally, following cataracts, and it affects the aging population more than any other group. The number of cases is rising due to population aging. Ethnicity, African Americans are 6 to 8 times more likely to develop it than Caucasians and often develop it earlier. And high-risk groups, people over 60, those with a family history, persons living with diabetes, severely nearsighted individuals are at higher risk. And what are the projections here, my friends? The total number of glaucoma cases is projected to reach 112 million by 2040. So against that background, let's take a closer look at glaucoma, and we'll answer some very common questions for you this evening. Now, what is glaucoma? Chronic open-angle glaucoma, also known as primary open-angle glaucoma, is a painless condition, usually associated with high pressure in the eye, which results in nerve damage and loss of vision. Normal pressure varies between 12 and 21 milligrams of millimeter, that is, let me repeat that. Normal pressure varies, right? It varies between 12 and 21 mmHg. Pressure is formed by fluid passing through the eye. This fluid, called the aqueous humor, is produced by a gland called the ciliary processes. The aqueous humor drains out of the eye through the tissue or tissue in front of the eye called the trabecular meshwork. The increased pressure causing glaucoma occurs when fluid flows through the eye's drainage system when that is obstructed. High pressure, yes, high pressure is not always dangerous. And when we talk about high pressure here, we are talking about high pressure in the eye, not high blood pressure. And we'll explain the difference later on. Now, the increased pressure causing glaucoma occurs when fluid flows through the eye's drainage system and that is obstructed. High pressure is not always dangerous. In susceptible individuals, however, this high pressure does damage the eye, and in particular the nerve at the back of the eye, and that is called the optic nerve. The nerve becomes cupped and eventually the vision starts to fail. The loss of peripheral vision or side vision is one of the characteristics of glaucoma. Central vision is typically not affected until later, very later in the disease process. And friends, I can speak to that because I'm speaking to you as a person living with glaucoma since 1990 thereabouts. It was diagnosed actually in 1992 when I went back to Boston after some time on St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then again in 1994. What are the basic parts of the eye? Let's take a closer look at that. I think it's important for us to do that because knowing a few basic facts about the eye and how it works will give us a better understanding of glaucoma and how it affects us. Now, the outer layer of the eyeball is called sclera, and that is spelled sclera. This thin yet tough protective shell is the white of the eye and is covered by a transparent membrane called the conjunctiva. When that becomes infected, we have what is called conjunctivitis, something I'm sure we are all familiar with, like red eye and things like that. Now, the front of the sclera is known as the cornea. This is the clear tissue through which light enters the eye. The colored portion of the eye is the iris. It contains muscles that control the size of the pupil, which is a dark colored area in the center of the iris. The muscles of the iris regulate how much light enters the eye, and depending on the amount of light, the pupil responds by becoming bigger, or we can say it dilates, or smaller. That means it constricts. The lens of the eye is located behind the iris. It changes its shape to focus images onto the retina, and the retina is the area at the back of the eye. The retina delivers the images to the brain via nerve signals sent through the optic nerve, that big nerve at the back of the eye. All these different parts work together to produce signals, which are sent to the brain to produce a visual image or picture. Basically, that's how we see. With me so far, friends? Now, the inside of the eye is filled with fluid, and in the center of the eye called this vitreous cavity, right? This is filled with a gel-like substance called vitreous humor. And the front compartment of the eye, and that part is bounded by the, you remember the cornea, the iris, the pupil, and lens, is filled with a watery fluid called the aqueous humor. This special fluid is responsible for the pressure we measure in the eye. May I repeat this? This special fluid, aqueous humor, right, is important. It is responsible for the pressure we measure in the eye. And the pressure is known as the intraocular pressure, IOP for short. How are we doing? It's a lot, right? I thought it was useful to get through some of this information about the different parts of the eye and how they function. And against that background, we have a better idea how glaucoma affects us. Now, what are the names of the different types of glaucoma? There are a variety of glaucoma types. These include primary or chronic open-angle glaucoma, including low or normal tension glaucoma. Secondly, there's the primary angle closure glaucoma, steroid-induced glaucoma, and pigmentary glaucoma. And Dr. Nicolette Springs books, Growing Up in Vincy, a collection of poems, Vincy Lifestyle, and Uniquely Vincy, are available at Games Book Center, Paul's Avenue, and Variety Service Center, Georgetown, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines.
Boost your brand's visibility with Branding by Weeks. At Branding by Weeks, we are passionate about helping brands gain exposure and make a significant impact. Let us elevate your brand's visibility and reach new heights. Connect with us today by email at spweeks@hotmail.com or message us on WhatsApp 613-866-8939.
Bayhillnews Network presents Inside Health, 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bayhillnews Net, also on KenCadiRadio.info. Hello, everyone. Good evening to you once again. Must apologize. I was just informed that we got cut off at some point, so my apologies. Not a nice way to start the new year. So here we go. Hi, hello, everyone. Welcome again to this week's edition of Inside Health. It's the first of the year 2026. Trust your year so far is going well. We're indeed happy to be back with you. We are grateful that you have allowed us into your space, at this time. Thank you so much. My name is Vin Abbott in the studio of KenCadi Radio Toronto with our chief engineer Monty Kippett at Bayhillnews Network on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Inside Health is a radio magazine health information program heard on Wednesday evenings on KenCadiRadio.info and Bayhillnews.net simultaneously. We take a look at the human body, the different parts, functions, diseases, and conditions that affect performance. We are solution-focused. In this regard, we pay close attention, we pay close attention to the determinants of health, the social determinants of health, to mean all those factors with which we were born, grow, live, and age. This week, The eyes have it. Yes, glaucoma is in focus, and flu is wreaking havoc globally. We'll talk about that as well. So let's get going. Yes, this month has been declared Glaucoma Awareness Month. And according to the World Health Organization and related studies, glaucoma is seen as has been identified as a major cause of blindness, affecting millions globally, with around 80 million people living with it by 2020, leading to over 3.6 million blind and 4.14 visually impaired. It's the second leading cause of blindness after cataracts, disproportionately affecting older adults and certain ethnic backgrounds or groups like African Americans. Projections estimate the number of people with glaucoma will rise to 112 million by 2040. Here's some key figures. Prevalence, approximately 76 to 80 million people, that is, worldwide, had glaucoma. That was between 2020 and 2024. Blindness, about 3.6 million people were blind due to glaucoma. Visual impaired, around 4.14 million people experienced moderate to severe visual impairment, known as MSVI, from glaucoma. And what about the proportion of blindness? Well, glaucoma accounted for roughly 8.39% of all blindness. That's 8.39% of all blindness. What about impact and risk factors? According to the WHO, glaucoma is the second leading cause of irreversible blindness globally, following cataracts. As regards the aging population, the number of cases is rising due to population aging. Ethnic background, African Americans are 6 to 8 times more likely to develop it than Caucasians, and often develop it earlier. And the high-risk groups include persons over 60, persons with a family history, persons living with diabetes, and severely nearsighted individuals are at higher risk. And the projections are the total number of glaucoma cases is projected to reach 112 million by 2040. So, what is glaucoma? Chronic open-angle glaucoma, also known as primary open-angle glaucoma, is a painless condition usually associated with high pressure in the eye, which results in nerve damage and loss of vision. Normal pressure varies between 12 and 21 millimeters of mercury, mmHg for short. Pressure is formed by fluid passing through the eye. This fluid, called the aqueous humor, is produced by a gland called the ciliary processes. The aqueous humor drains out of the eye through the tissue in the front of the eye, called the trabecular meshwork, and you'll hear about that again. The increased pressure causing glaucoma occurs when fluid flow through the eye's drainage system is obstructed. High pressure is not always dangerous. In susceptible individuals, however, this high pressure does damage the eye, and in particular, the nerve at the back of the eye. This nerve is called the optic nerve. The nerve becomes cupped, and eventually the vision starts to fail. Yeah, so let's continue here. The center of the eye, called the viscous cavity, is filled with a gel-like substance called vitreous, that is, humor. The front compartment of the eye, bounded by the cornea, iris, pupil, and lens, is filled with a watery fluid called the aqueous humor. This special fluid is responsible for the pressure we measure in the eye. This pressure is known as the intraocular pressure, IOP. So we are good here. Some basic information on the eye, the different parts of the eye, how they function. Now, what are the names of the different types of glaucoma? Let's see if we can get into some of that now. These different types include 1, primary or chronic open-angle glaucoma, including low or normal tension glaucoma. We also have what is called a primary angular closure glaucoma. We also have what is called a secondary open-angle glaucoma, including angular recession due to trauma, for example. We also have secondary closed angular glaucoma. We also have congenital glaucoma. Of all the different types of glaucoma, the most common is primary or chronic open-angle glaucoma. It accounts for approximately 90% of all cases. Primary angular closure glaucoma, yes, that is, loss of peripheral vision of the side vision is the characteristic of glaucoma. Central vision is typically not affected until very late in the disease process. Well, what are the basic parts of the eye? We believe on this program that it would be helpful to just review some of them. I think it will give us a better understanding of how glaucoma works, how it affects us. Yes? So the outer layer of the eyeball is called the sclera. This thin yet tough protective shell is the white of the eye and is covered by a transparent membrane called the conjunctiva. And conjunctiva sounds familiar, right? Conjunctivitis, red eye, things like that. Now, the front of the sclera is known as the cornea. This is the clear tissue through which light enters the eye. And the colored portion of the eye is the iris. It contains muscles that control the size of the pupil, which is the dark colored area in the center of the iris. The muscles of the iris regulate how much light enters the eye. And depending on the amount of light, the pupil responds by becoming bigger, or we often say it dilates. Or smaller, we say constrict. The lens of the eye is located behind the iris. It changes its shape to focus images onto the retina, and that is the area at the back of the eye. The retina delivers the images to the brain via nerve signals sent through the optic nerve. That's the big nerve at the back of the eye. All these different parts work together to produce signals which are sent to the brain to produce a visual image or picture. That is how we see. Now, the inside of the eye is filled with a fluid. Yes, and we'll talk about that some other time, yes? But why don't we continue with some questions, ask some questions. What is the difference between glaucoma and ocular hypertension? Glaucoma refers specifically to high pressure causing damage to the optic nerve and or peripheral vision. Ocular hypertension refers to high pressure, which does not damage the nerve or vision. Patients with ocular hypertension are often called glaucoma, right? Glaucoma suspects, that is, glaucoma suspects. Most glaucoma suspects do not go on to develop glaucomatous nerve and vision damage, right? Another question that is often asked is, well, what does it really mean when my doctor says to me, or if my doctor says to me, I'm a glaucoma suspect? Now, a glaucoma suspect is a person with high eye pressure, but without damage to the optic nerve or visual field. Most patients with ocular hypertension do not require treatment and will not get glaucoma. However, about 33% of patients with high pressure do eventually go on to develop glomatous damage. As a result, it is absolutely essential that glaucoma suspects be examined at least once a year to rule out the development of early damage and the need for therapy. Another question that is often asked by fans is, what is normal pressure? Normal eye pressure is between 12 and 21 millimeters of mercury, mmHg for short, with average pressure being 15.5 millimeters And pressure above 21 millimeters is considered to be abnormal. Damage, however, can occur at different pressures in different individuals. Some patients, glomatose nerve damage at pressures below 21 millimeters, while others develop nerve damage earlier at very high pressures. Your eye specialist will tell you whether your pressure is normal for you as an individual. And this is very important, as again, as a person who's living with glaucoma, particularly in my left eye, I understand this quite well. I have to make sure that the pressure in my eye, or let me put it this way, my doctor works with me to help ensure that the pressure in my left eye is even below 10 millimeters because of the damage that was done to my eye years ago in the late 80s into the early 90s. Whereas on my right eye, it's different, it's normal, and that's why I'm taking eye drops on my right eye to keep the pressure there within normal range. And at the same time, on my right eye, I've done surgery and all of that, and the pressure there has been maintained below 10 thereabout. Because of the damage that was done, it's important for us, my doctor and I, to pay close attention to that. But that will be different for different persons, for individuals. So important for you to have an aggressive doctor, so to speak, aggressive to me, who's on top of things with you, who's always checking you out, your eye pressure out and all of that, and affording you all the tests available to see what's going on, not only with the pressure, but with the nerve endings and all of that in your eyes. Very, very important. Now, with glaucoma, what happens to the intraocular pressure in the eye? In a healthy person, the eye's fluid or aqueous humor continuously drain through an area called the trabecular meshwork to maintain normal pressure. And in many patients with glaucoma, the pressure in the eye builds up and rises up because there's damage to the drainage system. For example, in chronic open-angle glaucoma, the trabecular meshwork blocks outflow of fluid, so that fluid accumulates, increasing pressure that can gradually damage the optic nerve. Makes sense, right? There's pressure build up in your eye. The meshwork kind of drain it. Obviously, the pressure is going to go up. That's happened to me. So that my first surgery, and we'll talk about the different forms of treatment later on in this series, but that was where they went first, to clear up the meshwork, to allow fluid to drain. So that's to reduce, that helped tremendously to reduce the pressure in the eye. Another question that is often asked: can I develop glaucoma without having an increase in eye pressure? Well, friends, research shows that for a small number of patients or persons with glaucoma, there's little or no increase in the eye pressure or ocular tension. This increase in eye pressure, ocular tension, this is called normal tension or low tension glaucoma. But the exact cause for glaucoma in these persons is still unknown. Although pressure still plays a role in causing this form of glaucoma, there are likely other factors involved, such as blood flow, optic nerve mechanical weakness. Lowering eye pressure has been shown to prevent deterioration in patients with normal tension glaucoma. Well, how common is glaucoma? We talked about that earlier on, right? We talked about that, referencing material from the World Health Organization. We did say, for example, the projection is that by the year 2040, we'll have around 112 million persons living with glaucoma. And presently, well, between 2020 and 2024, we had 76 to 80 million people worldwide living with glaucoma. As regards blindness, we had, during that period, 3.6 million people were blind due to glaucoma. And in terms of visual impairment, around 4.14 million people experienced moderate to severe visual impairment, MSVI for short, from glaucoma. And proportion of blindness, glaucoma accounted for roughly 8.39% of all the blindness. So that's how common it is. It's very common in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. is very common amongst our people. So this is why we are using this month, Glaucoma Awareness Month, to try and shed some light on the problem that we have. I'm very aware of many persons on homeland who are living with glaucoma and who perhaps are not being treated the way they should be treated. To mean we can do better by our persons living with glaucoma and eye conditions, not only glaucoma, but cataracts, but glaucoma, because we find it's considered to be a silent disease, because the damage starts from the outside first, the peripheral vision, the side vision, not until it really gets really severe and starts to affect the central vision that some people realize that, and then blindness really is irreversible. So once it gets there and you can't do anything with the vision, you can just slow down the progress. It's a silent disease. Very important. If you're from a family with a history of glaucoma, you're living with diabetes or something like that, you need to get checked out. One of the first things I did when I found out that I was living with glaucoma, I informed my sons and informed my children that I am living with glaucoma. You need to be mindful. You need to be mindful. Against that background, for every person blinded by glaucoma, more than 6 others have lost use of vision in one eye. Friends, to prevent serious problems, I encourage you on this program to see your eye doctor for regular eye examinations every year, especially if you're a Black person or your family has a history of glaucoma and all of that. If you have some injury to your eye, like I did, you also need to get that checked out. You don't know what might be going on with the optic nerve at the back of the eye. Another question that is frequently asked, Monty, is, well, I see very well and do not wear glasses. How can I have glaucoma? Friends, it's important to remember that glaucoma, I just said it, glaucoma does not really affect your central vision. Glaucoma affects side vision and only affects central vision very late in the disease. Therefore, glaucoma has no effect at all on your need to wear glasses. Does glaucoma cause blindness? Of course, yes, if untreated. That is why regular eye examinations are so important. If glaucoma is treated promptly, it can usually be controlled and vision can be saved. Thank God for that. I came back to the States, was able to get the care that I needed. I'm able to, after so many years, over 30 years, I've been living with diagnosed glaucoma and still being able to read. I'm reading here for you right now. I can use the computer. I can use my phone. I can, I'm very grateful. And we want the same thing for you. Can my children inherit glaucoma from me? Yes, this is possible, although not always the case. Children whose parents have glaucoma have a much greater risk for the disease and should have annual eye examinations after the age of 18. A defect has been discovered in a particular gene called the TIGR. It is found in an unusual form of juvenile glaucoma for persons under 30 years. Other defects have also been found in babies born with glaucoma. However, genetic defects have not as yet been found in the most common type of glaucoma, called chronic open-angle glaucoma. Is glaucoma contagious? No, it is not. It's not an infectious disease, like, say, HIV or flu or something like that. Is glaucoma caused by stress? No. Unlike blood pressure, hypertension, high pressure is relatively unaffected by stress. And I mentioned the word cupping earlier on. What is cupping of the optic nerve? The optic nerve at the back of your eye carries all of the visual stimuli to the brain. The normal optic nerve looks a bit like a donut. It has a pale central area called a cup. Now the rim surrounds the cup, and it is the part of the nerve carrying the electrical impulses from the eye to the brain. In glaucoma, the rim gets thinner and the pale cup gets bigger. This process is known as cupping. If your doctor says your nerve is cut, this means your nerve is damaged with an enlarged central cup and a thin rim. I've seen those films. I see them all the time when I go to get my eyes checked. I see what it looks like. And this is absolutely correct. It's like a donut, but then it gets thinner and you have the hole there, a bigger hole all the time with a thin rim. So you take a donut and you take out from inside out, you take out all the dough and all of that, that's how it becomes thinner all the time. That is cutting. Finally, for tonight on glaucoma, what are the risk factors for glaucoma? We repeat. Individuals who are most likely to be at risk are 1, persons over age 50, 2, persons who are related to someone with glaucoma, 3, if you're a person of African descent, 4, if you're very short-sighted. Perhaps the most important of these is being related to someone with glaucoma. Glaucoma is unusually it's unusual in people under the age of 50. That is, glaucoma is unusual in people under the age of 50. But I got it before I got to 50. Again, I had the damage that was aggravated. It was secondary to trauma. But again, glaucoma is in the family. So it was just a matter of time. And it is more common in patients with a strong family history and in those who are very short-sighted. In North America, for example, blacks are 3 times as likely to develop glaucoma as are whites of the same age. There's also a slight increase in glaucoma in patients who suffer from diabetes. Does glaucoma cause high blood pressure? The answer is no. Glaucoma will not increase your high blood pressure, your blood pressure. If my blood pressure is high, will my eye pressure be high? Not necessarily. Although there's an indirect relationship between high blood pressure and glaucoma in older persons, patients under stress or who experience a sudden increase in blood pressure do not usually have high pressure. Does glaucoma produce eye strain and headaches? No. Chronic glaucoma is symptomless. Most patients do not know they have the disease. Silent. Yeah? Silent. My friends, reason for you to get your eyes checked out if you are at risk, given what we just told you about age, ethnic background, family history, and more. This is where we want to end this segment on glaucoma. When we come back, we'll speak briefly, very briefly, about food. So that's my friends, you're listening to Inside Health, the first edition for the year 2026. My name is Ben Abbott in the studio of Kankari Radio Canada, with our chief engineer, Monty Kibir, in the studio of the Bayhillnews Network, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Back with you very shortly.
Boost your brand's visibility with Branding by Weeks. At Branding by Weeks, we are passionate about helping brands gain exposure and make a significant impact. Let us elevate your brand's visibility and reach new heights. Connect with us today by email at spweeks@hotmail.com or message us on WhatsApp 613-866-8939.
Looking for a place to relax with natural cool breeze and friendly surroundings? Then check the Bayhill Tree Bar, located at Bayhill Cane Garden. We have everything a bar will have. We also sell Shell 20 pounds of cooking gas at the Bayhill Tree Bar. Bayhillnews Network presents Inside Health, 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories of the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bayhillnews Net, also on KankadiRadio.info. Welcome back to Inside Health. Hope all is well. It's now 9:40 in the studio of Concato Radio. It's 10:40 in the studio of Bayhillnews Network. But it's a late program today to start off the year. But as promised, let's just say a little bit about flu. Understand that it's creating havoc not only here in North America, but also in the Caribbean and St. Vincent and the Grenadines and elsewhere. Reports coming out of Canada here, Global News, flu sees increasing emergency room and wait times in Canada. The number of flu cases is rising across the region, putting pressure on the local emergency services. The flu landed 33,300 Americans in hospital for that week, compared with 19,000 the week before, and that was just around the holiday season. So, and I know several persons on Homeland since before the holiday season who were battling the flu. Friends, the truth is there are a few common respiratory viruses that may circulate, not only here in Canada and the US of A, in the Caribbean, over the course of the respiratory virus season starting now until early spring. Well, normally the flu season tends to peak around December, but it seems as though it's peaking in sort of later. So the worst is yet to come, the experts are predicting. So hence why we are doing this short feature on cold, flu, and COVID-19. Now, the influenza virus or flu is a respiratory virus that circulates, in communities, most frequently here in North America in fall and winter, and in the Caribbean around the same December, this time of year, people are traveling back and forth, so it spreads like, wildfire, as the people say. Influenza spreads from person to person through coughing, sneezing, or having face-to-face contact. It can cause mild to severe respiratory disease. Now, the rhinovirus, what is usually the cause of the common cold? Yes, the cold spread from person to person in a similar way to influenza through coughing, sneezing, or having face-to-face contact. And symptoms are usually mild. And then the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, this virus spreads from person to person through coughing, sneezing, or having face-to-face contact. Symptoms across individuals can vary. Some will have no symptoms or mild symptoms. Other people may suffer from severe disease requiring hospitalization. And why we're doing this too, for example, here in Canada, the burden of influenza can vary from year to year. The flu is estimated to cause about 12,200 hospitalizations and to 3,500 deaths in Canada each year, mostly amongst high-risk populations. Again, all the indications are that it's going to be worse than this year in North America. And again, speaking with folks on St. Vincent and Grenadines before the holiday season, during the holiday season, clearly the flu is wreaking havoc on our people, and people are turning up at the hospitals and all of that with symptoms, and putting a strain on emergency services and so on. Against that background, some people are more, let us talk a little bit about the ones who are most vulnerable. Some people are more vulnerable, that is, to infection or serious complications and hospitalization from the flu, making vaccination essential, especially important for. Again, this is for those who are inclined to take the vaccine for the flu. Children under age 5 here in Canada encouraged to take, people over 65 and older, residents, staff, and other persons who work in congregate living settings, hospitals, and other places, pregnant women, people with underlying health conditions. And if you do not get the flu, be sure to, let me repeat that, if you get the flu, be sure to, 1, if possible, stay home and get plenty of rest. If possible, stay home and get plenty of rest. It's ideal to think in terms of not giving others the virus, and this is so important. I know that we have to work, folks have to go out and work, and money is so important. So folks would, despite feeling unwell, will still go out and gather, attend funerals, and do other things like that, mix and mingle. A lot of that happened during the 9 mornings and happened during the shopping season and the busy Christmas season. I get it, but the recommendation is stay home and get plenty of rest. That is it. That is a recommendation from the authorities. Drink lots of fluids like water, tea broth, right? Tea broth, and some people recommend chicken soup highly, and I've heard of success stories around that. But again, clear fluids basically, because the broth is supposed to be clear, transparent. You should be able to see through it. Talk to your doctor, nurse practitioner, or pharmacist about over-the-counter medications that can help you to feel better. Take a warm bath. Gargle with salt water or suck on lozenges. As regards that, gargle with salt water. One of the things that an old physician told me, and it makes a lot of sense, when you have flu or sore throat and all those things that tend to accompany, some of these respiratory problems, very often you feel a lot of pain. And while it's important, like salt would, because of the process of osmosis, to pull the film and all that out of your upper respiratory tract, your throat, and things like that. So that's the idea behind that. But if you're experiencing pain, I remember this old doctor said to me, well, you should, if you're going to gargle or whatever, you gargle with cold water, because the cold water would act as an anesthetic and would help to reduce the pain on the nerve endings in your throat and so on. But the idea, again, that is if you experience a little pain. But yes, gargling with salt water. Some people even suggest, again, an old family doctor suggested using, for example, an aspirin, grind an aspirin, and then you take it into a tablespoon, with some water, and you gargle your throat. The ingredients in the aspirin will also help to bring out some of the film and all of that in your throat. Again, if you can, that was recommended to me, and again, something you might want to talk to your pharmacist about or your doctor about. But I do know aspirin gargle helps. Cold water, cold drinks help if you're feeling pain, to sort of numb the pain as much as possible. Yes, salt water, it pulls out, salt pulls out. Helps gargle with salt without having to pull out the stuff in your throat as well. Very important as well, avoid alcohol, caffeine, and smoking. I also suggest to people to avoid dairy products like milk and things like that, because they are so acidic, and they will help with it to add more film to your system, to your throat and all that. That's something you want to avoid. This is why I suggested strongly to use lots of fluid, water, tea, broth, those things that are free of milk and dairy stuff and so on, something you want to take into consideration. Again, this is something you'll want to discuss with your doctor. Call your doctor if you don't start to feel any better after a few days, if your symptoms get worse, or if you're in a high-risk group and develop flu symptoms. You might want to talk to your doctor or your pharmacist. To end, what are some of the best practices suggested? Wash your hands frequently with alcohol-based sanitizer or soap and water. Good old soap and water can't hurt. 2, cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue or your sleeve. Wear a mask to protect yourself, others, from getting the infection, the respiratory infection. And for physical distancing, when possible, is always a good thing. Spend time outdoors or in well-ventilated indoor spaces. The sunshine, certainly, out in the sunshine can't hurt. Spend time outside. And again, stay home if you are sick and if it is possible. right? And if you're so inclined and your doctor recommends it and so on, you feel that you have to get vaccinated against influenza each year. So friends, this is where we want to end this week's program. We sincerely hope that you found the program useful. So not late this evening. Hopefully we'll get back on track next week with the time. Thank you very much, Monty, for being there. And we look forward to another wonderful year with you on Inside Health here on Bayhillnews Network and Kankadi Radio simultaneously. My name is Van Abbott. Mr. Migan. Monty, thank you very much. Stay well, my friends.
Bayhillnews Network presents Inside Health, 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases.